When a war veteran with 3 Purple Hearts shows you photographs of his fallen brothers with trembling hands and says, "Riley, someone is selling information that could get more of our boys killed," you understand this isn't about money or fame. Dave Rodriguez had walked through the hell of Afghanistan, lost half his squad, but came home a hero. But when he sat across from me in the Warriors Brotherhood headquarters and said, "My wife is trading secrets with the people who profit from soldiers' blood," I knew that sometimes the most dangerous war begins at home. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows of the Veterans Center, casting long shadows across the wall of photographs. Dozens of young faces frozen in time, soldiers who'd never made it home. Dave's weathered hands held a crumpled tissue, and I could see the slight tremor that never quite left him, a souvenir from too many IED explosions and too many sleepless nights. I'd known Dave Rodriguez for 5 years, ever since we'd both started attending meetings at Warriors Brotherhood, a support group for combat veterans struggling with PTSD. We'd served in different conflicts, him in Afghanistan, me in Iraq. But we shared the unspoken bond of men who'd seen things that civilians couldn't imagine and carried burdens that never quite lifted. Dave was the kind of soldier who'd run into enemy fire to drag a wounded comrade to safety, the type who'd give his last MRE to a hungry kid in a Kabul marketplace. Even now, 8 years after his discharge, he carried himself with the straight-backed posture of a career NCO, though the lines around his eyes spoke of sleepless nights and memories that wouldn't fade. "Tell me what's happening," I said, settling into the worn leather chair across from him. Dave reached into his jacket and pulled out a small metal object, a military dog tag, worn smooth from years of handling. He set it on the table between us with the reverence of someone placing flowers on a grave. "This belonged to Sergeant Tommy Henderson," Dave said, his voice barely above a whisper. "My squad leader in Afghanistan. He died in my arms in the Korangal Valley, March 15th, 2011. I'd heard Dave mention Tommy before, usually late at night during group sessions when the memories became too heavy to carry alone. But I'd never seen the dog tag before, never realized Dave had been carrying this piece of his dead friend for 13 years. "Dave, what does this have to do with—" 3 days ago, I came home early from a consulting job and found Carla going through my office files. She was photographing classified documents on her phone, security assessments, contractor evaluations, budget allocations for new equipment programs. Dave's jaw tightened. When I asked her what she was doing, she said she was helping organize my paperwork for tax season. Dave picked up the dog tag, rubbing his thumb across the stamped letters of Tommy's name. It was a gesture I recognized, the kind of unconscious movement that provided comfort during moments of stress. But it wasn't tax season, Riley, and she was photographing documents marked secret and top secret, information that could get people killed if it fell into the wrong hands. "What kind of consulting work are you doing?" "Security assessments for defense contractors. I evaluate the effectiveness of new equipment, body armor, vehicle armor, communications systems, weapons platforms. The Pentagon trusts my assessments because I've used this equipment in combat, seen what works and what doesn't." Dave's voice took on the professional tone of someone discussing a technical subject. "My reports influence contract awards worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And Carla has access to these reports? She's been helping with my administrative work for 2 years. Filing, scheduling, organizing documents. I trusted her completely." Dave set the dog tag down again, his fingers lingering on the worn metal. "Riley, if someone is selling information from my reports, they could manipulate contract awards, cause inferior equipment to be purchased, put soldiers at risk." The weight of what Dave was describing hit me like a physical blow. Military contracting was a multi-billion-dollar industry, and inside information about upcoming awards could be worth millions to the right people. but the human cost of that corruption. Soldiers dying because of defective equipment chosen through bribery rather than merit was almost unthinkable. Dave, have you noticed any other changes in Carla's behavior? New friends, unexplained income, changes in routine? She's been taking a lot of business trips lately. Says she's expanding her lobbying practice, building relationships with potential clients in Washington. Dave paused, studying the dog tag intently. But yesterday, I saw a bank statement she left on her desk. Deposits totaling $150,000 over the past 6 months. That's more than she usually makes in a year. Where does she say the money is coming from? New clients, performance bonuses, consulting fees. She's always been successful, so I didn't question it. Dave looked up at me, and I could see the pain in his eyes. Not physical pain, but the deeper hurt that comes from betrayal by someone you trust. Riley, what if I've been helping her sell out my own brothers? Before I could answer, Dave's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. What is it? Carla. She wants to know where I am. Says she has something important to discuss with me tonight. Dave showed me the message. Dave, honey, we need to talk about your future. I have a proposition that could change everything for us. A chill ran down my spine. In my experience, when someone involved in potential criminal activity suddenly wanted to have an urgent conversation about the future, it usually meant they were either trying to draw their target deeper into the conspiracy or eliminate them as a threat. Dave, don't go home tonight. Stay here at the center or come to my place. We need to figure out what's really going on before you confront Carla. I can't run from my own wife, Riley. If she's involved in something illegal, I need to know. If she's involved in something illegal and she knows you're suspicious, you could be walking into a trap. Dave picked up Tommy Henderson's dog tag again, closing his fist around it like a talisman. Tommy died because someone sold defective body armor to the Army. Armor that was supposed to stop rifle rounds but failed when he needed it most. His voice was thick with old grief and fresh anger. If Carla is helping the same kind of people who killed Tommy, then I have to stop her. I owe him that much. I understood the weight of that obligation, the debt that survivors carry to the dead, the promise to honor their sacrifice by fighting the battles they couldn't finish. But I also understood that getting Dave killed wouldn't help Tommy Henderson or anyone else. Then we'll stop her together. But we do it smart, we gather evidence, and we make sure the right people pay for what they've done. 2 days later, I was sitting in my car outside the Colorado State Capitol building, watching Carla Rodriguez emerge from the office of Senator Richard Blackmun. She moved with the confident stride of someone accustomed to navigating political corridors, her expensive suit and briefcase marking her as a successful Washington insider. Carla was an attractive woman in her mid-40s, with the kind of polished appearance that suggested both professional success and personal ambition. She'd met Dave 8 years ago when he was struggling with his transition to civilian life, and by all accounts, she'd been instrumental in helping him find purpose and stability after the war. But the woman I was watching now carried herself with the calculated poise of someone playing a very different game than loving wife and supportive partner. I followed her from the Capitol to an upscale restaurant in downtown Denver, where she met with a man I didn't recognize. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit that screamed, "defense contractor." Their conversation was animated, with both parties checking their phones frequently and exchanging what looked like documents. After an hour, they parted ways with the kind of handshake that seals important deals. Carla walked to her BMW with the satisfied expression of someone who'd just completed a successful transaction. That evening, I met Dave at a diner near the Veterans Center. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, dark circles under his eyes, that slight tremor in his hands more pronounced than usual. The dog tag was visible beneath his shirt, hanging from a worn chain around his neck. I did some research on Senator Blackman, I said, sliding a manila folder across the table. He's been pushing for increased defense spending for the past 5 years, particularly for contracts involving personal protective equipment and vehicle armor. Dave opened the folder and studied the documents I'd compiled: voting records, committee assignments, campaign contribution reports. Look at page 3, I continued. Blackman has received over $2 million in campaign contributions from defense contractors over the past 4 years. Companies like Titan Defense Corporation, Aegis Protection Systems, and Blackwater Security. Dave's jaw tightened as he read. I know these companies, Riley. I've written reports recommending against contracts with some of them. Their equipment doesn't meet military specifications, but somehow they keep getting awarded lucrative deals. That's not the worst part. I pointed to a specific entry in the campaign finance report. See that $500,000 contribution from Titan Defense? That was made 2 weeks after the Army announced a new procurement initiative for next-generation body armor, information that was classified at the time. Dave set the papers down and reached for Tommy's dog tag, his fingers working the metal like worry beads. Tommy was wearing Titan defense armor when he died, he said quietly. The company claimed their vests could stop armor-piercing rounds, but Tommy's vest failed when a sniper's bullet hit him center mass. The Army investigated and found that Titan had been using substandard materials to increase their profit margins. How many soldiers died because of defective Titan equipment? 47 confirmed deaths between 2008 and 2012. The company paid a fine and agreed to improve their quality control, but no one went to prison. Dave's voice was steady, but I could see the rage burning behind his eyes. Riley, if Carla is feeding information to Blackman and he's using it to help companies like Titan win contracts, then she's not just committing espionage, she's an accessory to murder. The next morning brought the crisis I'd been dreading. Dave called me at 6 a.m., his voice tight with barely controlled panic. Riley, I need you to get over here right now. Something's happened. I found Dave at his house, standing in his home office surrounded by overturned file cabinets and scattered papers. Someone had clearly searched the room thoroughly and violently. When did this happen? Sometime last night. Carla said she was going to a conference in Washington, flew out yesterday afternoon. I came down here this morning to work on a report and found this. Dave gestured at the chaos around us. Riley, they took everything. Classified documents, contract evaluations, security assessments, files that could compromise ongoing operations if they fall into the wrong hands. I surveyed the damage, noting the professional thoroughness of the search. This wasn't the work of common criminals looking for valuables. Someone had specifically targeted Dave's classified materials. Did they take anything else? Electronics? Personal items? My laptop, backup drives, even my old deployment photos. Dave reached under his shirt and pulled out Tommy's dog tag. They missed this, though. Must not have realized what it was. Dave, where did you keep your most sensitive documents? In a safe in the closet, military grade, digital lock, the works. Dave led me to the walk-in closet, where a heavy steel safe sat with its door hanging open. But look at this. The safe hadn't been forced or drilled. It had been opened with the correct combination. Only 2 people knew that combination, Dave said, his voice hollow with realization. Me and Carla. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. I watched as the man who'd survived 3 tours in one of the most dangerous places on earth struggled with the knowledge that his own wife had sold him out to his enemies. She's been planning this for months, Dave continued, sinking into a chair. The questions about my work, the interest in my files, the business trips to Washington, it was all preparation for this. Dave clutched Tommy's dog tag so tightly his knuckles went white. Riley, what if the information she stole gets more soldiers killed? What if I enabled this by trusting her? Before I could answer, Dave's phone rang. The caller ID showed Carla's number. "Dave, honey, I just heard about the break-in from our security company. Are you okay?" Carla's voice was perfectly calibrated to express concern and shock. "I'm fine," Dave replied, his voice carefully neutral. "The police are here taking a report."
"What did they take?"
"Some office equipment, files, nothing too important." Dave looked at me as he lied, understanding instinctively that Carla was fishing for information. "I'm so sorry this happened, baby. I'll catch the first flight home." "No, don't cut your conference short. I can handle this." After Dave hung up, we sat in silence for several minutes. The weight of betrayal filled the room like smoke from a fire that couldn't be extinguished. "She's coming back to assess the damage," I said finally, "to see how much you know and what you're planning to do about it." "What am I supposed to do, Riley? She's my wife. 8 years of marriage, helping me through the worst PTSD episodes, building a life together." Dave's voice cracked. "How do you arrest someone you love?" "You remember why you're doing it?" I gestured toward the dog tag in his hands. "Tommy Henderson and 46 other soldiers died because people like Senator Blackmun put profit above honor. If we don't stop this, how many more will die?" That afternoon, I arranged a meeting with Special Agent Sarah Martinez from the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. Agent Martinez was a former military police officer who specialized in cases involving defense contractor fraud and political corruption. "We've been investigating Senator Blackmun for 18 months, she told us, reviewing files in a secure conference room at the FBI field office. "We know he's been taking bribes from defense contractors, but we haven't been able to prove it. His operation is sophisticated, multiple layers of shell companies, offshore accounts, carefully structured campaign contributions." "What about the connection to Titan Defense and the defective body armor?" Agent Martinez's expression darkened. "That's part of a larger pattern. Blackman has been using his position on the Senate Armed Services Committee to steer contracts toward companies that pay him kickbacks, regardless of whether their equipment meets military specifications." She opened another file and showed us photographs of soldiers killed in action. 17 deaths in Afghanistan and Iraq can be directly attributed to equipment failures involving companies that paid bribes to Blackman. The conservative estimate is that his corruption has cost the lives of over 60 American service members. Dave stared at the photographs, his hand moving unconsciously to Tommy's dog tag. Each face in those photos represented someone's son, daughter, husband, wife, lives cut short by greed and corruption. "What do you need from us?" I asked. "We need evidence of the information transfer. Bank records, communications between Mrs. Rodriguez and Senator Blackmun's people, documentation of the classified materials that were stolen." Agent Martinez leaned forward. "But most importantly, we need someone willing to wear a wire and get Senator Blackmun to incriminate himself on tape." Dave was quiet for a long moment, weighing the risks of going undercover against a powerful politician with connections throughout the military and intelligence communities. "If I do this, and Blackman finds out, he could have me killed and make it look like a veteran suicide. PTSD cases are convenient that way. We'll provide protection, backup, and monitoring, but you're right, there are risks." Dave pulled out Tommy's dog tag and set it on the table between us. "Sergeant Henderson didn't get to choose his risks when he put on that defective armor. The least I can do is choose mine." 3 days later, I was monitoring Dave's wire from a surveillance van parked outside Senator Blackmun's Denver office. The plan was simple. Dave would approach Blackmun claiming to have information about an upcoming Pentagon procurement decision, offering to sell details in exchange for money and protection from prosecution for his previous cooperation with Carla. "I'm nervous as hell," Dave's voice came through clearly on the wire. "But I keep thinking about Tommy and the others. This is for them. Through the surveillance equipment, I could hear Dave entering the building, taking the elevator to the senator's floor, being announced by a receptionist. Then the sound of a door opening and Senator Blackman's voice. "Mr. Rodriguez, I understand you have some information that might be valuable to me." "Senator, I think we both know I've been providing information through my wife for several months now, but recent events have made me nervous about continuing that arrangement." "What kind of recent events?" "Federal agents asking questions about classified document security. I think they're getting close to discovering our arrangement." Dave's voice was steady, professional, the tone of a man conducting a business transaction. "And you're concerned about your own exposure?" "I'm concerned about going to prison for treason while you and your friends get rich off information I provided. If we're going to continue working together, I want direct compensation and guarantees about my protection." There was a pause, and I could imagine Blackman calculating his options. Finally, he spoke. "Mr. Rodriguez, I think you may have misunderstood the nature of your wife's consulting relationship with my office. We've never asked for or received classified information." Dave was ready for this denial. "Senator, I have copies of the bank records showing payments to Carla's consulting firm that correspond exactly with the dates she photographed my classified files. I also have recordings of conversations where she discussed specific contract details that she could only have obtained from my reports." Another pause, longer this time. "Those recordings could be forgeries. Bank records can be manipulated." "They could be, but they're not." Dave's voice took on a harder edge. "Senator, I didn't come here to play games. I came here to propose a partnership that benefits both of us. You need information about upcoming procurements, and I need protection from federal prosecution." "What kind of information are we talking about?" "Next month, the Pentagon is awarding a $2.8 billion contract for next-generation infantry fighting vehicles. I've been asked to evaluate the armor systems for all three competing designs. My recommendation will heavily influence the final decision." I could hear the greed in Blackman's voice when he responded. "And you're willing to share that recommendation in advance?" "For the right price and the right guarantees, yes." "What kind of price did you have in mind?" $5 million transferred to an offshore account, plus assurance that if federal investigators get too close, you'll use your connections to redirect their attention elsewhere." Blackman was quiet for nearly a minute. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the smooth confidence of a man who'd made many similar deals. "Mr. Rodriguez, I think we can work something out, but I'll need proof that you're willing to follow through on your commitments." "What kind of proof?" "The preliminary evaluation reports for the fighting vehicle armor systems. I'll need to see those before we finalize any financial arrangements." Dave had anticipated this request. Agent Martinez had prepared a set of realistic but harmless fake documents that would appear to contain classified information without actually compromising national security. "I have them with me." "Excellent. Let me review these and we'll discuss terms." For the next 20 minutes, I listened as Dave and Senator Blackman negotiated the details of their corrupt arrangement. Blackman explained how he would use Dave's information to advise his associates in the defense contracting community, allowing them to adjust their bids and technical specifications to ensure they won the contract. "Of course, this benefits everyone," Blackman said. "The companies get contracts. I receive consultation fees, you receive compensation for your expertise, and the military gets equipment that meets their needs." "And if the equipment doesn't actually meet military needs?" "Well, that's the military's problem, isn't it? Our job is to facilitate the procurement process, not to second-guess the Pentagon's requirements." The casual callousness in Blackman's voice was breathtaking. He was discussing the potential deaths of American soldiers with the same tone most people used to talk about stock prices or real estate deals. "Senator, I need to know that you understand the risks involved here. If this information leads to inferior equipment being purchased, soldiers could die." "Mr. Rodriguez, soldiers die in war. That's unfortunate, but it's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to ensure that the procurement process works efficiently for all stakeholders, including the companies that pay you consultation fees, including all legitimate stakeholders in the defense industry. At that moment, I knew we had everything we needed. Senator Blackmun had just confessed on tape to accepting bribes, manipulating defense contracts, and showing callous disregard for the lives of American soldiers. But the conversation wasn't over. "Mr. Rodriguez, there is one more thing we need to discuss, your wife's role in this arrangement." "What about Carla?" "I'm afraid Mrs. Rodriguez has become something of a liability. She's been asking questions about our other business relationships, expressing concerns about the legality of our information sharing. She seems to be developing a conscience." A chill ran down my spine. Blackman's tone had shifted from businesslike to threatening. "What are you saying, Senator?" "I'm saying that for this partnership to work long-term, we need to ensure that all parties remain committed to our mutual success. Mrs. Rodriguez's recent behavior suggests she may not be as committed as we initially believed." "Are you threatening my wife?" "I'm explaining the realities of our business, Mr. Rodriguez. People who become liabilities in this industry have a tendency to suffer unfortunate accidents. PTSD-related suicides, car crashes, home invasions gone wrong. These things happen more frequently than you might expect." Dave's response was immediate and filled with controlled fury. "Senator, if anything happens to my wife, I'll make sure every newspaper and television station in the country knows about your corruption." "Mr. Rodriguez, I think you misunderstand the situation. You're not in a position to make threats. You're a man with a history of PTSD, struggling with financial problems, married to a woman who's been selling classified information to foreign agents. If something unfortunate were to happen to you, the investigation would focus on those vulnerabilities." "Foreign agents?" "Oh yes, didn't you know? We have evidence that Mrs. Rodriguez has been in contact with Chinese intelligence services, selling information about American military capabilities. Very tragic. A war hero betrayed by his own wife, driven to suicide by the shame of her treachery." The scope of Blackman's manipulation was staggering. He'd not only corrupted Carla, but he was prepared to frame both her and Dave as foreign spies if they became inconvenient. "That's a lie," Dave said. "Is it? We have bank records showing payments from shell companies linked to Chinese intelligence. We have communications between Mrs. Rodriguez and known foreign operatives. We have classified documents found in her possession. The narrative practically writes itself." At that moment, I made the decision to abort the operation. Dave was in immediate danger, and we had enough evidence to bring down Blackman without risking his life further. I activated the emergency signal, and within 30 seconds, FBI agents were storming Blackman's office. The next few hours were a blur of arrests, evidence collection, and debriefing sessions. Senator Blackman was charged with bribery, conspiracy, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder based on his threats against Dave and Carla. The evidence we'd gathered led to a broader investigation that would eventually implicate dozens of defense contractors and government officials in the largest military procurement scandal in American history. But the most shocking revelation came when Agent Martinez briefed us on Carla's actual role in the conspiracy. "Mrs. Rodriguez has been working as an informant for our investigation for the past 6 months, she told us in the FBI conference room. She approached us after discovering Senator Blackman's corruption through her lobbying work." Dave stared at her in disbelief. "Carla's been working for the FBI?" "She uncovered Blackman's bribery scheme and agreed to help us gather evidence. The theft of your classified documents was staged to make Blackman believe she was fully committed to the conspiracy. In reality, all the documents she provided were carefully prepared fakes designed to entrap him. But the money, the bank deposits, the meetings with contractors, all part of her cover story. Mrs. Rodriguez has been in significant danger for months, maintaining her relationship with Blackman while secretly recording their conversations and documenting his criminal activities. The revelation hit Dave like a physical blow. For weeks, he'd believed his wife had betrayed him and everything he stood for. Learning that she'd actually been fighting the same enemies he was, risking her life to bring down the people responsible for Tommy Henderson's death, left him speechless.
Why didn't you tell me?
He finally asked. Because we needed your reactions to be genuine. If Blackman suspected that Mrs. Rodriguez was an informant, he would have had her killed immediately. Agent Martinez paused. Mr. Rodriguez, your wife volunteered for this assignment specifically because she knew how much Tommy Henderson's death had affected you. She wanted to help you find justice for your fallen friends. Dave reached for Tommy's dog tag, holding it like an anchor to reality, while his understanding of the past few months shifted completely. Where is she now? Safe house, under protection until Blackman's network is completely dismantled. She'll testify at his trial, but given her cooperation and the risks she's taken, she won't face any charges. 3 weeks later, I attended the ceremony where Dave Rodriguez received the FBI's Public Service Award for his undercover work in bringing down Senator Blackman's corruption ring. The investigation had expanded to include procurement fraud totaling over $12 billion and had led to criminal charges against 47 individuals, including 3 senators, 12 defense contractors, and multiple Pentagon officials. But the most meaningful moment came when Dave stood before the assembled crowd of FBI agents, military officials, and family members of fallen soldiers. This investigation wasn't about money or politics, he said, holding Tommy Henderson's dog tag. It was about honoring the sacrifice of soldiers who died believing they were protected by the best equipment America could provide. Sergeant Tommy Henderson and 63 other service members died because people valued profit over their lives. Dave paused, his voice thick with emotion. Today, we've delivered a message that their deaths weren't meaningless, that someone was willing to fight for justice on their behalf. This is for them. 6 months later, I watched Dave marry Dr. Lisa Garcia in a simple ceremony at the Warriors Brotherhood Center. Lisa was a psychologist who specialized in treating combat veterans, and she'd been instrumental in helping Dave process not just the trauma of betrayal, but the complex emotions of learning that his wife had actually been fighting alongside him all along. Carla had chosen not to attend the ceremony, recognizing that her relationship with Dave couldn't survive the deception required by her undercover work, even though that deception had been in service of a righteous cause. She'd moved to Washington, where she continued working with federal prosecutors to dismantle corruption in the defense contracting industry. During the reception, Dave pulled me aside and showed me Tommy Henderson's dog tag one final time.
I'm giving this to the memorial wall, he said. Tommy doesn't need me to carry his memory around my neck anymore. He needs me to live the life he couldn't. Dave fastened the dog tag to a special display case that held mementos of fallen warriors from the Warriors Brotherhood community. Lisa helped me understand that survivors' guilt isn't about forgetting the dead. It's about living in a way that honors their sacrifice. As I watched Dave and Lisa dance to their first song as husband and wife, surrounded by fellow veterans and the families who'd supported them through their darkest moments, I realized that some stories don't end with victory or defeat. They end with healing. Dave Rodriguez had started this journey carrying the weight of his dead friends and the betrayal of someone he loved. He'd ended it with justice for the fallen, truth about his wife's heroism, and the love of someone who understood that healing from war isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about finding the strength to build something beautiful from the pieces that remain.
Tommy Henderson's dog tag now hangs on the memorial wall at Warriors Brotherhood, a reminder that some sacrifices echo across generations, inspiring others to fight for the values those young soldiers died defending. And sometimes, if you're willing to risk everything for the truth, you discover that the war you thought you were fighting alone was actually a battle where allies stood beside you all along, even when you couldn't see them. The case file sits closed in my office now, but the lessons remain open. Justice is worth any risk, truth is worth any sacrifice, and the bonds forged in combat extend far beyond the battlefield to encompass everyone willing to stand up for what's right. Dave Rodriguez learned that the hard way, but in learning it, he found not just justice for his fallen brothers, but peace for his own wounded soul.